My dad had been nagging me about blind dates for 3 whole years. He always sighed and said that after he and my mom were gone, leaving me alone in this world would be too lonely. To put his mind at ease, I went to meet the girl his old friend had introduced, Sienna. She was sophisticated and down to earth, not materialistic, the most compatible blind date I'd ever met. My dad couldn't stop praising her, urging me every day to act fast, saying a girl this wonderful wouldn't wait around forever. Just the night before I was secretly planning to propose with the diamond ring I'd already ordered, I accidentally came across a screenshot from a high society girls group chat. Ladies, I found a rich idiot. Stupid and loaded. I'll have him completely trapped tomorrow. Below it was a candid photo she'd secretly taken of me eating, showing my profile. My fingers trembled as I scrolled down. I've got my eye on that limited edition Hermes Birkin. Tomorrow I'll spike his drink, and when he's out of it, I'll just swipe his card. That's how I handled the last old guy with a Mercedes. Worked perfectly, no problems at all. Just then, my phone suddenly vibrated. Sienna sent me a message. Tristan, I've booked your favorite restaurant for tomorrow night. Let's have dinner together. I looked at those screenshots over and over, unable to believe it. Sienna, who was always so dignified and proper, was this vile online. But the photo was right there, my jacket, my hands. How could I not recognize myself? The evidence was ironclad. Breaking into a cold sweat, I took a deep breath and replied, sure, see you tomorrow night. The next day I arrived at the restaurant to find Sienna already there early, with all the dishes already ordered. Seeing me enter, she quickly stood up with a smile and pulled out my chair. Tristan, you're here. You look so sharp today. The picture of a refined young lady. We'd barely eaten a few bites when I heard her say, Tristan, we've met several times now. We should make it official. My dad says he'll arrange our engagement for next week. I nearly dropped my fork. Including today, we'd only met 4 times, and we hadn't even confirmed our relationship. Engagement already? I swallowed the curse words on the tip of my tongue. Sienna, I don't think we're compatible. Sienna's smile froze. What are you saying, Tristan? I'm saying we're not compatible. You can't force a relationship. Let's not contact each other anymore. Sienna's face immediately darkened. Tristan Parker, what do you mean? Are you playing games with me? If you weren't interested, why did you keep meeting me? I listened wordlessly, not responding. Sienna snorted coldly and pulled a piece of paper from her bag, slapping it on the table. Fine, you want to break up? Let's settle the accounts first. I looked down to see an itemized list of dating expenses. A long string of items, with a total at the bottom. $48,000. I was shocked and looked up at her. She looked completely justified. Not a penny less. But I treated you too. It's not like you were the only one paying. As far as dating expenses went, I'd spent about the same amount as her. That was your choice. I didn't force you. I laughed in disbelief. You're charging me for the Uber ride you took to get here? It said $200 for the ride, but it only took her 20 minutes to get here. If I wasn't coming to see you, would I need to make this trip? Who else should I charge if not you? I pointed at the line that said beauty treatment, $2,800, and asked again, what does your spa treatment have to do with me? If I wasn't meeting you, would I need to maintain my appearance? Sienna said self-righteously. I was so angry I nearly choked. Then show me the receipts, the order screenshots. Let's go through it line by line. I'm not taking your word for it. Sienna slammed the table. What receipts? You have no idea how much effort I put into dating you? You think you can just take advantage and run? Her aggressive manner finally matched that bitter woman in the screenshots. Instead, I calmed down. How about this? Take a photo of this list and post it on your social media. Get 200 likes, and I'll transfer the money immediately. Not a penny less. Sienna's face stiffened. Her eyes darted around, and she immediately switched to a gentle expression. I was just speaking off the cuff earlier. Tristan, I like you. I don't want to break up. I was just joking with you. Don't take it to heart. She pushed the red wine on the table toward me. Come on, have some wine and calm down. I stared at the glass of red wine for a moment, then reached out and picked it up. Seeing me pick up the wine glass, Sienna's eyes lit up. Probably thinking I was about to fall for her trap, she started with the sweet talk again. Tristan, I was too anxious earlier. Your right, feelings can't be forced. If we're not compatible, that's okay. Let's part on good terms. We can still be friends. My hand trembled, and the entire glass of red wine spilled onto the table. Sienna's face immediately went pale, staring at the pool of red wine, unable to speak. I set down the empty glass and followed her lead. You're right, let's part on good terms. Right in front of her, I pulled out my phone and directly called the matchmaker, Raymond. Tristan, are you calling to set a date? I told you Sienna was reliable. Your dad found the right person through me. Raymond, this match isn't going to work. Sienna and I aren't compatible. Raymond immediately turned hostile. Not compatible? Tristan Parker, you're 30 years old. What are you being so picky about? You'll never find a wife this way. I hung up before he could finish. Sienna watched me execute this series of moves smoothly, completely stunned. She wanted to blow up, but it was too late after all. She just said they should part on good terms. She glared at me hatefully, stood up, and slammed the door on her way out. From the looks of it, she wouldn't let this go easily. Sure enough, a few days later while I was at work, my colleague Mike rushed over with news. Tristan, you better go downstairs and check it out. Someone's making a scene at the company entrance, cursing you out by name. I went downstairs to find Sienna, her father, and Raymond all blocking the company's main entrance. A crowd had gathered around them. Sienna's father was squatting on the ground, slapping his thighs and wailing. God is blind. Everyone come judge this situation. Tristan Parker dated my daughter for half a month, scamming her for food, drinks, and affection, conning my daughter out of tens of thousands of dollars, then just walked away. Her mother died young. I raised her as a single father. How are we supposed to live now? My colleagues were whispering to each other. I really couldn't tell. Tristan seems like such an honest guy normally. Is he really a freeloader? Tens of thousands of dollars? That's way too much, isn't it? He ate and then refused to pay. So shameless. Don't let him ruin our company's reputation. Raymond pulled me out from the crowd, playing the mediator. Tristan, I have to be fair here. Even if you don't want to continue the relationship, you should return the money Sienna spent on you, right? Sienna's family isn't well off. She spent so much money on you and kept track of every expense, clear as day. He solemnly pulled out that same itemized list from last time and stuffed it into my arms. Just take pity on Mr. Sullivan. Return the money. He raised Sienna all by himself. How hard that must have been. Can you really bear to watch him squat here like this? Sienna walked over with red-rimmed eyes. Tristan, don't blame my dad. He's just worried about me. I genuinely liked you. Can you give me another chance? I promise I'll never bring up these things again. The looks my colleagues gave me became even more strange, all shaking their heads. The commotion was too big. Our manager, Mr. Wilson, walked over with a dark expression. Tristan Parker, I don't want to get involved in your personal affairs, but causing a scene at the company has too negative an impact. They've brought out the account book. Hurry up and return the money, or the company can't keep you. After the manager spoke, I didn't panic at all. Instead, I smiled. I won't give you a single cent. I said calmly, not only will I not give you money, I'm going to collect what you owe me. Hearing this, Sienna's father squatted back down and started wailing again. Help! This punk is trying to drive us father and daughter to death. My daughter works so hard to earn money, working early and late every day, exhausting herself. He scammed away all the money she finally saved. And now he's turning it around on us. You heartless scoundrel. My colleagues also criticized me. Tristan Parker, you've gone too far. How can you ask them for money? Playing the victim. Exactly. Paying back debts is only natural. Have some shame. The manager had lost his patience. Tristan, pay up quickly. Stop embarrassing yourself here. I ignored them and held up the itemized list for everyone around to see. Everyone look carefully. This is the bill she wants me to pay. Sienna and I met a total of 4 times. She paid for 2 meals, and I also paid for 2 meals. I have payment receipts. Why is she calculating all 4 meals as expenses she paid alone? The murmuring stopped, and people crowded over to look. I pointed at the list and continued. To get to the restaurant, she only needed a 20-minute Uber ride, but she recorded $200 for the fare each time. 4 times makes it $800. Sienna's father stopped wailing and jumped up, shouting. So what if she recorded it wrong? Everyone makes accounting mistakes. You're nitpicking over this tiny error because you want to dodge the debt. My daughter spent so much money on you, and you still have the nerve to find fault? You have no conscience at all. But the onlookers' expressions had already changed. A few $100s off is a small error? This is obviously inflated reporting. The fare doesn't match up either. A 20-minute ride doesn't cost $200. This is extortion. I don't think this is as simple as it seems. Seeing things going south, Sienna's father rushed forward to grab the list, but was blocked by several colleagues. I simply started reading it aloud. Predate beauty treatment, $2,800. Manicure, $800. Eyelash extensions, $600. Uber fare, $800. Cosmetics depreciation, $1,000. Sienna, you treated me to meals, but I also took you to movies and coffee. I never took advantage of you. But why should I pay for your beauty treatments, manicures, and eyelash extensions before our dates? The crowd completely exploded. What the hell? She's charging him for beauty treatments? And manicures and lashes? Is this a blind date or a scam? These prices are wrong too. Beauty treatment for $2,800? Do they think we're idiots? This is ridiculous. This is clearly extortion. The onlookers all turned against them. Sienna's face turned red and white alternately. In desperation, she raised her voice and shouted, "Everyone, don't let him distract you. I gave him a $20,000 luxury watch. That was real money. I snorted coldly and pulled out an authentication report from my pocket, holding it up for everyone to see. I had this watch verified at the official store. The clerk said on the spot it was a knockoff. The same model online costs a few $100s with free shipping. I handed the authentication report to a knowledgeable colleague nearby. After looking at it twice, the colleague laughed. It's definitely fake. Even the movement doesn't match. Now the crowd was truly furious, pointing at them and cursing. She gave him a fake gift and has the nerve to make a scene at the company entrance? This is completely backwards. This is a scammer, isn't it? Call the police. I looked at Sienna, my tone ice cold. The watch you gave was a few $100 fake, but the gift I gave in return was a brand new phone worth $10,000, plus expensive tea and supplements for your father. These items add up to $15,000. Return it to me now. The onlookers also told her to return the money, and some said they should call the police. Sienna's face turned ashen as she pulled out her phone and transferred the money. Sienna's father tried to stop her but was pulled aside by Sienna, who whispered something to him. Her father stopped protesting. After Sienna transferred the money, she grabbed her father and ran. Before leaving, her father glared at me viciously. This isn't over. Just you wait. On the weekend, I was resting at home when someone frantically knocked on the door. My dad opened the door to find our neighbor Mrs. Davis looking anxious. Mr. Parker, you need to go see what's happening. Several people are live streaming at our community entrance, saying your family scammed them out of money and affection. I thought to myself, it's finally here. I immediately opened the livestream app, searched the local area, and quickly found it. Sienna had found a popular streamer with hundreds of thousands of followers. The host was speaking passionately. Everyone, today I'm going to seek justice for this infatuated girl who was scammed out of all her savings. In the camera, Sienna looked haggard as she complained. Tristan Parker and I dated for half a year. Our relationship was always good, and we were even talking about marriage. His family demanded a $30,000 wedding money. We scraped together every penny we had, but after he took the money, he turned on us and blocked me. Sienna's father was squatting on the ground wiping tears, crying heartbreakingly. I'm a single father. Those $30,000 came from selling my hometown house and borrowing from relatives. Now the son-in-law is gone, the house is gone, but the debt remains. We don't even have a place to live anymore. We can't go on. Raymond also spoke righteously. I've been a matchmaker my whole life. I've never seen such a black-hearted family. I personally watched Sienna hand $30,000 in cash to Tristan Parker's father. His father was grinning from ear to ear when he took the money. The livestream had hundreds of thousands of viewers flooding in, with comments overwhelmingly cursing us. Marriage scam. Fraud. Expose him. Let him be socially destroyed. This kind of person teaches people? My dad and I had just walked out of the community entrance when the livestream camera was shoved in our faces. Sienna's father pointed at me and howled. It's him. Everyone please help me make him return the money. He then pointed at my dad and cursed viciously. You call yourself an educator but all you do is immoral things. For a moment, both the neighbors present and the netizens in the livestream were cursing our family. Scammer. Return the money. My dad was at a loss, frantically waving his hands. We didn't take any money. My son never even dated her. The netizens didn't believe him at all. The comments became even more vicious. The scammer is still trying to make excuses. Playing innocent. The evidence is right here. Raymond walked over triumphantly and said to my dad, my friend, so many people are watching. You should just return the money. Otherwise, your Tristan will never find anyone willing to marry him. I quickly supported my dad. Dad, don't worry. Let me handle this. The host came up to me. This is the person in question, Tristan Parker. They say you took $30,000 and then blocked them. What do you have to say? When will you return the money? I looked at the camera, neither humble nor arrogant. Sienna and her family are making false accusations. They have no evidence. I don't acknowledge it. Sienna was prepared. We gave cash. Raymond is the witness. I snorted coldly. If you have evidence that you were defrauded of $30,000, why didn't you report it to the police? I pulled out my phone, found that group chat screenshot, held it up to the livestream camera, and said word by word. They have no evidence, but I do. The livestream camera, a high-definition lens mounted on a professional stabilizer, swung toward me. The host, a popular local influencer named Vince, who made his living by exposing societal injustices, leaned in with his microphone. His eyes gleamed with the prospect of viral gold. You say you have evidence, Tristan? Vince asked, his voice dripping with theatrical gravity. But we just heard a father weep for his lost savings. We heard a respected community matchmaker swear he saw the cash change hands. What could you possibly show us that overrides the tears of an old man? Sienna's father, Mr. Sullivan, took this as his cue to wail louder, burying his face in his rough, calloused hands. He's going to lie. He's a college-educated punk with a wealthy family. They have the money to fake anything. Netizens, please don't let him trick you. Sienna stood beside him, her face a mask of pale, fragile distress. She reached out to touch the streamer's arm. Vince, I don't want to hurt Tristan. I just want our family's hard-earned money back. $30,000 is everything to us. Raymond, the matchmaker, nodded solemnly. I'm a witness. I saw the bag of cash. If Tristan denies it, he's denying the very sky above us. I didn't utter a word. I simply stepped closer to the camera lens. I unlocked my phone, pulled up the high-resolution PDF of the forensic analysis, and held it directly in front of the camera. Let's start with the screenshot, I said, my voice steady, carrying clearly over the low murmurs of the gathering neighbors. This is a verified export of a group chat named High Society Sisters. It was pulled by a digital forensics firm I hired last week. As you can see, the user Sienna_S sent a photo of me eating at a restaurant. Her phone number, which matches the one she used to contact me, is embedded in the metadata of this image. I swiped to the next page. Read the text below it, Vince. Read it aloud for your hundreds of thousands of viewers. Vince blinked, his eyes scanning the screen. His professional justice crusader persona wavered for a fraction of a second. He cleared his throat and read, I've got my eye on that limited edition Hermes Birkin. Tomorrow I'll spike his drink, and when he's out of it, I'll just swipe his card. That's how I handled the last old guy with a Mercedes. Worked perfectly, no problems at all. The live stream chat, which had been a non-stop scroll of insults directed at my family, suddenly paused. Then, the comments began to flash at a blinding speed. User_alpha, wait. What? Spike his drink? Daily drama. Hold on, is this real? Did she actually say she was going to drug him? Truth seeker. Look at the host's face. He's shaking. This is a massive plot twist. This is a fabrication. Raymond shouted, his oily voice cracking. Anyone can edit a screenshot. This is a rich kid using technology to slander a poor, defenseless girl. I expected you to say that, I replied calmly. I swiped to the third document on my phone. So let's move past the screenshot. Let's talk about the red wine Sienna pushed me to drink during our last date. The wine she insisted would help me calm down after I refused her $48,000 dating bill. Sienna's eyes widened. A sudden, sharp tremor ran through her shoulders. When I spilled that glass of wine on the table, I continued, looking directly into the camera lens. I didn't just do it out of anger. I used a clean, sterile travel bottle from my pocket to collect a sample of the liquid from the tablecloth. The next morning, I submitted it to the State Forensic Toxicology Laboratory. I tapped the screen, displaying a document with an official government seal, too. This is the official toxicology report, I said, my voice cold as ice. The sample of red wine collected from our table contained a highly concentrated dose of flunitrazepam, commonly known as Rohypnol, or the date rape drug. A dose of this size would have rendered me unconscious within 15 minutes, leaving my wallet, my phone, and my banking apps completely vulnerable. A collective gasp went through the crowd of neighbors standing around the community entrance. Mrs. Davis, who had been looking at us with disapproval moments ago, covered her mouth in horror. Oh my dear Lord, she whispered. She tried to poison him? She didn't just try, I said, turning my gaze to Sienna, whose face had gone from pale to a ghastly, translucent gray. She's done it before. The old guy with a Mercedes she mentioned in her group chat? I found him. The livestream host, Vince, was no longer looking at Sienna with sympathy. Was a veteran of the internet. He knew which way the wind was blowing. He smelled an even bigger story. Not a simple case of a bad breakup, but a serial predator being unmasked in real time. Tristan, Vince said, his microphone pressing closer to me. Who is the old guy with a Mercedes? Before I could answer, a sleek charcoal gray Mercedes-Benz pulled up to the curb just outside the community gate. The door opened and a distinguished-looking man in his late 50s stepped out. He wore a tailored charcoal suit, his silver hair neatly combed back. He walked with a slight limp, but his posture was dignified. My name is Arthur Pendleton, the man said, his voice carrying the calm weight of a seasoned corporate executive. He walked directly into the circle of the crowd, stopping a few feet from Sienna. Sienna looked as if she might faint. Her father, Mr. Sullivan, tried to step in front of her, his loud, bravado-filled posture completely vanishing. Who are you? What do you want? We don't know you. You don't know me, Mr. Sullivan, Arthur Pendleton said, his voice quiet but incredibly clear. But your daughter certainly does. 6 months ago, I met Sienna through a premium matchmaking service. On our third date, we went to a quiet lounge. I had one glass of scotch. The next thing I remember is waking up in my hotel room the following afternoon. Arthur turned to look at the livestream camera. When I woke up, my phone was missing. My physical wallet was on the nightstand, but my black card was gone. Over the course of 12 hours while I was completely unconscious, $98,000 had been wire transferred from my account to a series of offshore shell companies. When I confronted Sienna, she told me that if I went to the police, she would release edited photos of me in compromising positions to my board of directors. Arthur's eyes turned to Sienna, filled with a deep, cold disgust. I was a widower, a businessman with a reputation to protect. I was too ashamed to fight back. I swallowed the loss and broke off all contact. But when Tristan reached out to me last week with the toxicology report, I realized my silence had allowed this monster to target another family. The livestream chat was now moving so fast it was impossible to read. The public's fury had pivoted entirely. User_998, arrest her. This is a criminal syndicate. TechBro_99, the matchmaker is in on it too. He's the one who paired them. Justice now, look at her father. He's not crying anymore. He's looking for an exit. Sienna's father indeed looked like a cornered animal. He grabbed Sienna's arm. His voice a harsh, desperate whisper. Sienna, we're leaving. This is a setup. We're going. You're not going anywhere, Mr. Sullivan, I said. Just as they turned to run, the high-pitched wail of police sirens cut through the air. 3 patrol cars pulled up to the community gate, their blue and red lights flashing against the brick walls of the neighborhood. 6 officers stepped out, led by a sharp-eyed detective in a trench coat. He walked straight past the crowd, his eyes locked on Sienna, her father, and Raymond. Sienna Sullivan? The detective asked, pulling a set of documents from his pocket. Sienna didn't answer. She was trembling so violently that she could barely stunt. I am Detective Vance from the Economic Crimes and Narcotics Division, the detective said. We have a warrant for your arrest on charges of grand larceny, administering a controlled substance with intent to commit a felony, and extortion. He turned to Mr. Sullivan. And you must be Patrick Sullivan. You are being detained as an active co-conspirator. We have bank records showing that the offshore accounts used to launder Mr. Pendleton's $98,000 are registered under your legal name. No. No, Patrick Sullivan screamed, flailing his arms as an officer stepped forward to handcuff him. I'm an old man. My daughter did this. I didn't know anything about the money. I'm just a victim. You can explain that to the magistrate, Detective Vance said, his face unreadable. Then the detective's gaze landed on Raymond, who was quietly trying to blend into the crowd of onlookers, his flashy matchmaker's folder clutched tightly against his chest. Mr. Raymond Cho, Detective Vance said. Don't go too far. We have a search warrant for your matchmaking office as well. We've been looking into your exclusive introductions for 18 months. It seems a remarkable number of your wealthy, older clients end up suffering from sudden medical emergencies shortly after meeting the women you recommend. Raymond's oily face turned a sickly shade of yellow. His folder slipped from his hand, scattering various matching profiles across the damp pavement. Detective, please. I am a respected member of the community. I've been doing this for 30 years. I was just trying to help these young people find love. We'll see how much love you find in the state penitentiary, one of the arresting officers muttered, clicking a pair of cold steel handcuffs around Raymond's wrists. Vince, the livestream host, was practically vibrating with excitement. He was narrating the entire arrest to his audience, his camera capturing the precise moment the handcuffs were secured on Sienna's wrists. My friends, Vince said into his microphone, his voice filled with dramatic fervor. What we have witnessed today is not a simple case of a broken heart. It is the unmasking of a highly organized, predatory ring that preyed on the loneliness of honest men. Tristan Parker, the man who was slandered as a heartless scammer, is the hero who broke this case wide open. As the police guided the 3 suspects into the back of the patrol cars, the neighbors began to applaud. Mrs. Davis walked over to my dad, her expression filled with profound apology. Richard, she said, taking my dad's hand. I am so sorry. We should have known better. Your family has lived here for 30 years. We know the kind of man you are and the kind of boy you raised. My dad, who had been standing silent and pale throughout the entire ordeal, offered her a weak, polite smile. It's all right, Clara. The truth is out now. That's all that matters. Once the police cars drove away, the crowd slowly dispersed. Arthur Pendleton walked over to me, offering a firm, appreciative handshake. Thank you, Tristan, Arthur said. If you hadn't brought me that lab report, I would have spent the rest of my life carrying that shame. Thank you for standing up with me, Mr. Pendleton, I replied. I couldn't have Done this alone. Arthur smiled, patted my shoulder, and walked back to his Mercedes. I turned to my dad. His shoulders were slumped, his eyes tired. He looked older than his 65 years. He looked at me, a deep, heavy sigh escaping his chest. Tristan, he said softly, let's go home. Inside our house, the quiet felt heavy, almost suffocating. My dad sat at the wooden dining table, his hands wrapped around a cup of warm tea that had long since gone cold. He stared at the surface of the liquid, his reflection dark and distorted. I'm sorry, Tristan, he said, his voice barely a whisper. I sat down across from him, pushing the cold tea aside. Dad, you don't have to apologize. You didn't know. No, I should have known, he said, his voice cracking with a sudden painful emotion. He looked up, his eyes rimmed with red. For 3 years I've been nagging you. Every single day. I told you that you were getting too old, that you were being too picky. I was so terrified of leaving you alone in this world that I practically pushed you into the arms of a wolf. He rubbed his face, his breath shaking. Raymond was my old friend. I trusted him. When he told me Sienna was a sweet, down-to-earth girl from a humble background, I believed him without a second thought. I thought I was doing something good for you. But instead, I almost got you killed. I reached across the table and placed my hand over his. His hand was cold, trembling slightly. Dad, look at me, I said, my voice gentle but firm. I am 30 years old. I am an adult. It is my job to protect myself, and I did. If anything, this situation showed that the values you and Mom taught me, patience, caution, and observation, were exactly what saved me. I offered him a small, reassuring smile. I didn't drink the wine because I felt something was off. I investigated because I didn't want to make a reckless decision. You didn't fail me, Dad. You raised a son who knew how to handle a crisis. My dad looked at me for a long time, the tension in his face slowly beginning to ease. He let out a long, shaky breath, squeezing my hand back. Your mother would have been so proud of you, he whispered. She always said, you had a sharp mind, even when you were just a boy playing with those wooden blocks. She was right, I said, trying to lighten the mood. And now we don't have to worry about blind dates for a very, very long time. Deal. Deal, my dad said, a genuine, albeit tired, smile finally appearing on his face. No more matchmakers. If you want to remain a bachelor until you're 50, I won't say a single word. We laughed, the heavy cloud that had hung over our household for the past 3 weeks finally beginning to lift. But our peace was destined to be short-lived. 2 days later, a registered letter arrived at our door. It was a summons from the district court, but not for the criminal trial of Sienna Sullivan. It was a civil lawsuit. Patrick Sullivan, through a high-priced defense attorney, was suing my family for $50 million for reputational damage, emotional distress, and unlawful loss of livelihood. I stood in the office of our family attorney, Mr. Harrison. He was an older man, with sharp analytical eyes and a desk piled high with thick legal volumes. He was reviewing the lawsuit documents I had just handed him, a look of profound amusement on his face. $50 million, Mr. Harrison muttered, shaking his head. Patrick Sullivan has some serious nerve. He's currently sitting in a holding cell, waiting for his bail hearing, and his attorney is already trying to play the civil extortion card. Is it a serious threat? I asked, sitting in the leather chair across from him. In terms of winning? Absolutely not, Mr. Harrison said, tossing the papers onto his desk. The evidence we have, the toxicological report, Mr. Pendleton's testimony, the group chat metadata, is ironclad. No judge in the state would award them a single penny. But that's not their goal, Tristan. What is their goal then? Their goal is leverage, Mr. Harrison explained, leaning forward. The Sullivan family has no money for their criminal defense. High-end criminal attorneys are expensive. By filing this massive, highly publicized civil suit, they are hoping to force you into a settlement. They want you to pay them a couple $100,000 to drop the civil suit, which they will then use to pay for their criminal defense lawyers. And if we refuse to settle, then they will drag this through the press, Mr. Harrison warned. They will try to find any dirt they can on your family. Your father was a high school principal for 30 years, correct? A highly respected educator. Sullivan's lawyer is a man named Marcus Vance, a very dirty player. He will look for any disgruntled former student, any administrative dispute, anything he can twist into a headline to ruin your father's reputation and force your hand. My jaw tightened. I won't let them touch my dad. Then we need to strike first, Mr. Harrison said, his eyes gleaming with a sharp, professional intensity. We don't just defend against this lawsuit. We file a countersuit for malicious prosecution, abuse of process, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. And more importantly, we need to find out who is funding Marcus Vance. A grifter like Patrick Sullivan doesn't have the money to retain a lawyer of Vance's caliber, even on a contingency basis. Someone is backing them. Who? That's what we need to find out, Mr. Harrison said. Go back through everything, Tristan. Look at Raymond's agency. Look at Sienna's social circle. There has to be a connection. I spent the next 48 hours buried in digital research. With the help of a private investigator hired through Mr. Harrison's firm, we began to dissect Raymond Cho's exclusive matchmaking registry. We didn't just look at the victims. We looked at the financial backers of his agency. Raymond's business, Golden Threads Matchmaking, was technically registered as a limited liability company, but its primary shareholder was a holding company based in Delaware called Apex Prosperity Group. Who owns Apex Prosperity? I asked my investigator, a quiet, middle-aged woman named Sarah who was a genius with corporate databases. Sarah tapped her keyboard, pulling up a series of complex corporate registry sheets. Apex is a shell, but we track the banking transactions. Every month, a significant sum of money is transferred from Apex to Raymond's business account. It's not an investment, it's a retainer. A retainer for what? For information, Sarah said, turning her screen toward me. Look at this. Whenever a wealthy, single man registered with Raymond's agency, a copy of his financial profile was uploaded to a secure cloud server owned by Apex. 2 days later, Sienna or one of the other special girls would be assigned to that man. My stomach turned. It was an automated hunting system. Raymond was the spotter, Apex was the coordinator, and Sienna was the weapon. Exactly, Sarah said. But here's the interesting part. The ultimate beneficial owner of Apex Prosperity Group is a man named Gregory Sterling. I froze. Sterling? As in the Sterling Group? The real estate developers? The very same, Sarah said. Gregory Sterling is the black sheep of the family. He's been involved in several gray market lending schemes, but his family's wealth and legal team have always kept him out of prison. He's also a close personal friend of Marcus Vance, the lawyer representing Patrick Sullivan. The pieces of the puzzle fell into place with a terrifying, clicking precision. This wasn't just a simple grift by a greedy girl and her pathetic father. Sienna was part of a larger, much more dangerous operation run by Gregory Sterling. They targeted wealthy, vulnerable men, drugged them, drained their accounts and used Gregory's political and legal connections to keep the victims silent. Through blackmail and intimidation. When I exposed Sienna, I didn't just ruin her grift, I threatened to bring down Gregory Sterling's entire multi-million-dollar blackmail empire. They filed the $50 million lawsuit to scare me off. I muttered, my hands curling into fists. They wanted to silence me before the police investigation reached Gregory Sterling. And it almost worked, Sarah said. But they made one mistake. They didn't realize you had the resources and the stubbornness to dig this deep. What do we do now? I asked. We take this to the federal level, Sarah said, a cold smile touching her lips. 2. This isn't state-level fraud anymore. This is racketeering, corporate espionage, and interstate transport of stolen property. This is a RICO case. That evening, I decided to pay a visit to Gregory Sterling. He was a regular at the Meridian, an exclusive, members-only cigar lounge in the financial district. It was the kind of place where decisions were made in leather armchairs under a thick cloud of aromatic tobacco smoke. I wasn't a member, but Arthur Pendleton was. With Arthur's guest pass, I walked past the mahogany doors of the lounge. The air was warm, smelling of cedar, expensive whiskey, and aged tobacco. I spotted Gregory Sterling sitting in a private booth in the back, surrounded by 3 other men in expensive suits. He was a portly man in his mid-40s with a thin mustache and a smug, self-satisfied expression. I walked directly over to his booth, stopping at the edge of his table. Mr. Sterling, I said, my voice quiet but firm. Gregory looked up, his eyebrows raising in mild annoyance. Yes. Do I know you? My name is Tristan Parker, I said. The smug smile on Gregory's face stiffened. The other men at the table looked at each other, a sudden, tense silence falling over the booth. Ah, Gregory said, leaning back in his leather seat, taking a slow puff of his cigar. The internet hero. The man who likes to play detective. I believe my associate, Mr. Vance, has already sent you some paperwork. If you have something to say it to him. I don't think Mr. Vance will be very helpful to you in a few days, I said, pulling a chair from a neighboring table and sitting down, completely uninvited. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the table, looking Gregory directly in the eye. We tracked the bank accounts, Gregory, I said, dropping the polite titles. We tracked Apex Prosperity Group. We tracked the information flow from Raymond Cho's server to your personal database. We have the digital signatures of the shell companies used to transfer $98,000 of Arthur Pendleton's money into accounts you control. Gregory's expression didn't change, but the hand holding his cigar tightened slightly. You have nothing but wild theories, kid. You're out of your depth. Am I? I smiled, a cold, confident expression. The FBI's cybercrimes unit doesn't think so. I spent the last 3 hours at their field office. They were very interested in Apex Prosperity Group. It turns out interstate wire fraud using controlled substances is a federal offense that carries a minimum of 20 years in a federal penitentiary. I leaned in closer, my voice dropping to a whisper. Patrick Sullivan is already talking Gregory. When the police told him he was looking at 15 years for his involvement, he immediately offered to point the finger at the person who was paying his lawyer. He's very eager to save his own skin. This was a bluff, of course. Patrick was still in a holding cell and hadn't formally turned yet, but Gregory didn't know that. A man of his position, who built his empire on the cowardice of others, always assumed everyone else was just as cowardly. Gregory's face went pale. He slowly set his cigar down in the crystal ashtray, his eyes darting to his associates, who were already looking incredibly uncomfortable. What do you want, Parker? Gregory hissed, his voice dropping to a harsh, quiet whisper. First, the $50 million lawsuit is dropped. Tonight. I want a formal, signed withdrawal delivered to my attorney's office by midnight. Done, Gregory said without hesitation. Second, you are going to provide a full, unedited confession of your involvement with Raymond Cho's agency to the federal prosecutors. You will plead guilty, and you will ensure that Sienna, her father, and Raymond receive the maximum possible sentences without dragging my family into court. Gregory stared at me, a sudden desperate fury burning in his eyes. You're asking me to ruin myself. You ruined yourself the moment you targeted my family, Gregory, I said, standing up from the table. I adjusted my jacket, looking down at him with a calm, unyielding expression. You have until midnight to drop the lawsuit. If it's not done, the federal warrant for your arrest will be executed first thing tomorrow morning. Choose wisely. Without waiting for his response, I turned and walked out of the lounge, the heavy mahogany doors closing behind me. 2 weeks later, the $50 million lawsuit had been dropped within 3 hours of my confrontation with Gregory Sterling. By the following week, the federal authorities had moved in. Gregory Sterling, realizing his empire was crumbling, attempted to flee the country, but was arrested at JFK International Airport. Confronted with the digital evidence we had gathered, he quickly entered a guilty plea, cooperating with the prosecution in exchange for a slightly reduced sentence. Sienna Sullivan, Patrick Sullivan, and Raymond Cho were all denied bail. Their trial was set for the following month, but with Gregory's confession and our forensic reports, a conviction was a statistical certainty. They were looking at decades behind bars. The storm had officially passed. On a warm Saturday afternoon, my dad and I were sitting on the back porch of our house, the garden smelling of fresh pine and blooming roses. The sun was bright, the sky a clear, uninterrupted blue. My dad was reading the local newspaper, a peaceful expression on his face. Tristan, he said, looking up from the pages. There's an article here about the local high school. They're looking for a retired administrator to help consult on their new curriculum. What do you think? I smiled, taking a sip of my coffee. I think you'd be brilliant at it, Dad. You've been bored since you retired anyway. I have, he admitted, folding the paper with a soft sigh. And besides, now that I don't have to spend all my time worrying about your dating life, I need something to keep my mind occupied. Exactly, I laughed. Just then, my phone vibrated on the wooden table. I picked it up, expecting another legal update from Mr. Harrison. But instead, it was a message from an unknown number. I opened it. It was a photo of a small, cozy cafe downtown, with a cup of black coffee and a book of classical poetry sitting on a wooden table. Below it was a message. Tristan, I saw the news about the Sterling case. You did an incredible job. If you're finally free from all the drama, would you like to have a cup of coffee with someone who actually orders her own food and pays for her own manicures? Clara, Arthur's niece. I stared at the screen for a long moment, a genuine, warm smile spreading across my face. Clara was an attorney who worked at Mr. Harrison's firm. She had helped us organize the federal filing, and she was sharp, witty, and completely down to earth. My dad noticed my expression, his eyes twinkling with a sudden hopeful curiosity. What is it, Tristan? More legal paperwork? No, Dad, I said, sliding the phone into my pocket and leaning back in my chair looking up at the beautiful, clear blue sky. Just a friend. I think I might go out for coffee next weekend. My dad didn't say a word. He just smiled, picked up his newspaper, and continued to read. the warm afternoon sun shining down on our peaceful, quiet home.